If you're like me, you love high-end decor, but you do not like to pay those high-end prices. Today we are duping several high-end home decor pieces and we are going to save ourselves hundreds of dollars. This inspiration piece is a decorative box from Kathy Kuo. I love the gold accents along the top and the bottom, the gold feet, and the decorative handle. What I do not like is the price of $320. That's too expensive, and I know that we can make one for less. So the first thing that we need is a box. While I was out shopping at Michael's, I came across the clearance section. I found these large wooden gift card boxes. They were a great size and the price was fantastic. They were only $10 a piece. There were a few very obvious changes that needed to be made to this box. The first being the color. It was far too dark. This mahogany color is not going to work out, so we are going to paint it white. Before we paint our box, we need to remove the latch. This latch is okay, but I know that we can find something better. So I simply got my screwdriver and I took this latch off the box. Now there are holes left over. The easy solution is just to get some wood putty and putty up those holes. That's exactly what I did. Once the wood filler was in the holes, I let it dry for about 30 minutes and then I came back and I sanded it down so it was nice and smooth. I took my box outside and I got some white gloss Rust-Oleum spray paint. Because the original color was a dark mahogany, I needed to spray a fair amount of white paint on the box to make sure that the original color would not bleed through. Once the box was 100% coated in the white spray paint, I let it dry for 2 hours. Our inspiration piece had some gold accents on the top and the bottom. We are going to recreate that with some gold leaf rub and buff. I purchased mine at Hobby Lobby. I've also purchased the rub and buff on Amazon in the past. So what I'm going to do in order to get really straight lines is grab some blue painter's tape. The blue painter's tape will provide me a straight outline. And as a bonus, when I go to remove the painter's tape, it won't peel off the white spray paint. I made sure that the blue painter's tape was pressed firmly to the box so that I would get crisp, clean lines. I took the gold rub and buff and a rag and I added a dab of the gold rub and buff to the rag. I simply continued to add more rub and buff to the rag and then dabbed it onto the box in between the painter's tape. I went along the entire top of the box, and once it was completely coated, I moved on to the bottom. I added more rub and buff in between the exposed portion. Once I was done with the first pass, I inspected the gold and I could see that there were some areas that were a little bit lighter than others. So all I needed to do was get a little bit more of that gold rub and buff and go over it once again. This will give me a really saturated gold color, which will stand out. This rub and buff acts more like wax than paint, so you don't have to wait very long for it to dry. So I waited maybe 15-20 minutes and then I could remove the blue painter's tape. Now I made sure that I had something underneath my box as I was removing it, because when you remove the blue painter's tape, the rub and buff will flake off, so you want to make sure it doesn't go everywhere. But look at how crisp and sharp these lines are. These lines look professional. They are pristine and well defined. Next, we're going to add the knob to the box. Our inspiration box had a hanging knob. You can buy these at Hobby Lobby very affordably. I saw some there. I actually picked up 2, which we are going to be using in another project. However, for this box, I found something that I liked even better at Ross. These are quartzite and they have a beautiful gold accent around it. I love the natural, almost marble look of these. So I'm going to be veering off just a little bit and we're going to be using these knobs instead. So I got my drill and I drilled a hole through the center of the lid. Then I took my quartz knob and I put it through the hole. Then I threaded the washer and the nut onto the screw to hold it in place. I personally love this knob so much better. It looks classy, clean, very elegant, and adds a bit of a modern touch as well. The final addition that we need to make to our box is to add some feet. Now, a couple weeks ago, I did a thrift flip and I turned a container that I purchased at the thrift store into a beautiful planter for my flowers. And I added some feet to that container. What they were some doll heads that I purchased at Michael's. So I went back to Michael's. This time I'm purchasing some smaller round doll heads. These are perfect because they're round, but they have a flat part at the top. So I took these wood rounds outside and I sprayed them in some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint. I made sure that they were completely covered in the gold spray paint. Once they were 100% coated, I let them dry for 1 hour. I flipped my box upside down and then I got some E6000. I added the E6000 to the wood rounds and then I placed them on each of the 4 corners of my box. Once everything was in place, I let this dry overnight. We are done with our box. Look at how pretty this is. I love it. The size is huge. It's elegant. I love the gold accents on it. The knob is so classy and adds a bit of a modern touch. I love how it's elevated with the feet. And one thing that I did not change about my box was I left this little slit at the top for cards. I figured I could use this for a party. People could put cards in here or some advice. So I did actually contemplate closing this up, but I'm glad that I didn't, because not only is this box decorative, I can actually use it as a functional piece during a party. As a reminder, our inspiration box was from Kathy Kuo when it was $320. To calculate my cost, I am going to be prorating things. So for instance, I only used 1 knob and I only used 4 of the wood rounds, so I'm going to take that into consideration. To create my box, it cost me $23.50. What a great deal. We saved $206.50 over our inspiration piece. That's a bargain, and I love the way that this looks. Our next dupe are these candlesticks from the Wayfair website. The reason why they caught my eye was because I thought they would be perfect for this time of year. I love the rattan, and the price isn't too outrageous. It's on sale right now for $56.99. That's okay, but I know that we can make some that are just as great for so much less. So first up, I need some candlesticks. I thought I would try my luck at my thrift store, and I found some that were almost identical. They were similar in size and they had the right shape. The best part is that they were only $1.99 a piece, so we are already off to a great start. Now these candlesticks are pretty dirty and they are a little beat up, so what I'm going to do is sand them down and wash them off. That way I have a nice smooth surface to paint. My inspiration piece candlesticks had some decorative trim on the bottom, so I wanted to mimic that in some way. While I was at Hobby Lobby, I found these rectangular bag of 6 pieces of plywood. They didn't have any squares, so I had to get the rectangles. We had to improvise just a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to turn these rectangles into squares. So what I did was I got a ruler out and a pencil and I measured the correct size. Then I got an X-Acto knife. I cut along the pencil line. I needed to do a few passes with the X-Acto knife. Because the plywood is so thin, I was able to easily cut through the wood. I did this technique with 2 of my rectangles to create 2 squares. Now I have all the pieces I need, so I took everything outside and I sprayed it in some white gloss Rust-Oleum spray paint. This is the same spray paint that we used on my box. Once the plywood squares and the candle holders were 100% saturated in the spray paint, I let them dry for 2 hours. To attach my plywood squares to my candle holders, I used some E6000. I added the E6000 to the bottom of the candle holders, and then I placed them in the center of the plywood squares. I did this on both of my candle holders. Once they were in place, I let them dry for 3 hours. What really drew my attention to these candle holders in the first place was the rattan detail in the center. I don't have anything like that, and I thought it would be perfect for summertime. I had a hard time finding some similar rattan to our inspiration piece. But when I was at Hobby Lobby, I went down the ribbon aisle and I came across this poly mesh. It was the right color and in a similar geometric pattern. Luckily for me, all the ribbon and mesh was on sale for 40% off, so we got it for a great price. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut strips out of this poly mesh. I measured the size I needed and then cut out long strips. These sections are wide and long enough to fit all the way around my wood candle holders. I got some hot glue and I added the hot glue to the candle holders and then pressed the mesh strips around it. I simply continued to hot glue the mesh to the candle holder around the entire circumference. Once I was finished adhering the mesh to the first candle holder, I moved on to the second candle holder. I did the exact same thing. I simply hot glued the poly mesh to the center of the candle holder and continued around the entire circumference of the candle holder until it was completely covered. And that's it. Now we are finished with our beautiful dupe candle holders. Look at how pretty those are. I absolutely love the way that they look. I think our candle holders look so similar to our inspiration candle holders. They are unique and custom. One additional detail that I'm going to add to my candle holders is this Dollar Tree jar. I just took the lid off and it fits perfectly right on top of my candle holder. So now I have a safe way to put my candle inside and burn it without burning down the wood candle holder. So this looks so beautiful. I'm so happy that we decided to do it. Let's remember where we started from. This was from the Wayfair website and it was on sale for $56.99. After calculating all the costs to create my 2 candle holders, it was $9.35. So we saved over $47 over our inspiration candle holders. That's a big chunk of change. I'll happily keep that. I'm delighted with the savings and I'm delighted with the way that our candle holder dupes turned out. I'm always looking for decorative bowls or containers so I can create flower arrangements or display my decorative pieces inside. I saw this gorgeous decorative bowl on the Wayfair website. I loved the size, the shape, the color, and the handles on the side. What I didn't love was the price of $163.99. So yes, this is beautiful, but I think we can make an equally stunning bowl for so much less. So the first thing we need is to find a decorative bowl. While I was at Ross, I came across this stunning glass bowl. It was the right size, the right shape, and the right price. It was on clearance for $8.99. So all we need to do to this bowl now is change the color. So I got some paint. This time I'm using a Paint Plus primer. This is still a Rust-Oleum white gloss spray paint. I painted around the entirety of the bowl. I got underneath the bowl, I painted the sides and inside as well. Once the bowl was completely covered in the spray paint, I let it dry for 2 hours. Do you remember earlier how we were at Hobby Lobby and we found those hanging knobs? Well, this is the time where we're gonna pick them up because we need 2 of them. They are the perfect size and shape to put on either side of our bowl. Now they are the wrong color. We do need to paint them white, so I took them outside and I sprayed them in the same white Rust-Oleum spray paint, the Paint Plus primer. This is a great paint to use on metal pieces because it is rust preventative. Once my knobs were completely covered in the spray paint, I let them dry for 2 hours as well. Now that everything's white, it's time to attach my knobs to my bowl. What I'm going to be using is some E6000 and some hot glue. I added the E6000 to the back of the knob and then put some hot glue on the knob as well. The E6000 will hold the knob permanently and securely to the container. The hot glue will hold it temporarily so that the E6000 can dry. I put the knobs on either side of my bowl and then I let them dry overnight. And just like that, we are finished with our Look for Less bowl. This one, in my opinion, looks most similar to our inspiration piece. They look almost identical. My bowl looks just as expensive as our inspiration piece. It's gorgeous and classy. I can see charging $163 for my bowl. However, that is not how much mine cost. Decorative pieces like these bowls are so fantastic. You could put a flower arrangement, you could fill it up with candles, you could put some seasonal decorative items in here. Because it's white, it's neutral, so it will go with all kinds of different seasons and decor styles. I love the modern lines of this bowl, which can update and make your space feel refreshed and refined. By duping these 3 pieces today, we were able to save over $400 from our inspiration pieces. If you want some high-end decor, but you don't have the budget for it, find an inspiration piece and recreate it. Duping expensive home decor is an excellent budget-friendly alternative that can give you a stylish and trendy look. We can get a look for less and transform our living spaces without breaking the bank. Remember that you deserve to live beautifully every single day, and you can definitely do it on a budget. If you like this video and want to see more like it, I would love to have you subscribe so I can share those with you. Thank you so much for watching.